Hello and welcome to this first webinar that we've done here at Clara James Tutoring. My prediction is that it's going to last roughly 25-30 minutes, and during that time we're going to have a look at the tutoring market and the demand for tutors, both as the big picture and throughout the year. And then we'll have a look at the different types of tutoring, then we'll move on to the legal stuff, and then finally we'll come to the initial steps of setting up your own tutoring business. I hope it proves interesting, or I hope it proves helpful. But before I begin, two things. One, I'll introduce myself, and two, I've got my notes on the side of the screen. So if it looks like I'm reading, I apologize. I'm just kind of checking up on what my notes say to make sure I don't miss anything else or keep going off on a tangent. But I'm Dawn. I started Clara James Tutoring 12 years ago. Initially, we were Star Tutoring. My background was a degree, an open degree through the Open University, based around childcare and education. At the same time as I was doing my degree, I was working in a playgroup, and then I moved on to a primary school where there were 4 children in the class who had ADHD, and it was enlightening to say the very least. But I also thought my oldest daughter might be mildly dyslexic, so I'd done this course on supporting children with different with reading and spelling, and as part of the course, we had to do a case study. So at the end of the course, I went to the tutor, or the tutor asked to have a word with me, and she suggested it might be worth approaching her school about her being dyslexic. So I approached the school and kind of said, "Look, this is what I think. What do you think?" And they turned around and said, "No, dyslexia is basically an excuse for laziness. There isn't really a problem. So basically, clear off and carry on. Don't give us grief." So I wasn't confident enough to fight my corner. So I thought, alongside doing my degree, if I could learn as much as I could about different learning styles and different learning difficulties, maybe what I learned would complement my degree, but at the same time, I could also use it to help her with her schoolwork. And so over the coming years, I finished my degree. I worked in a huge range of different educational settings. And I also learned as much as I could about different learning styles. Then in 2012, I was on a course, and a friend I made there suggested that I had a go at tutoring. So no, it's fine. I don't think that would be for me. She's, "Oh, I think you'll love it." Don't think so. She's, "Oh," anyway, she kept on. In the end, okay, even if it only pays for a summer holiday for my kids each year, then yeah, it's worth giving it a go. Anyway, within 6 months, I gave up my full-time job, and then within 18 months, there was more work than I could cope with by myself. And I won't go on now, but I won't give you the whole story. It's a long story, but yeah, from there it's grown, and we're now in the situation that we are franchising. So yeah, it's gone from being me, myself, and I, and a suggestion that a friend made, to being a franchisable business. Anyway, let's get started. Is there a need for tutors? Yes, definitely. Um, Tutoring is in huge demand. It's now a multi-billion pound business across the globe. And obviously some subjects are going to have greater demand than others. Maths and English, science, the core academic subjects will generally create more demand than, say, Latin, which is studied by far fewer people these days. But as the curriculum gets harder, it's creating more and more challenges for some of the children who are already struggling, and trying to keep up is just proving too much for them. So parents are having to look for external sources of support in order to help their children. That, alongside the growing class sizes and the shortage of teachers in some areas and some subjects, again, is having a knock-on effect. And so in the past few years since lockdown, we've seen a huge rise in the number of children who are also being homeschooled. And a lot of these parents are looking for support in teaching the subjects that they don't feel confident in supporting themselves, especially as the children grow up into kind of like their GCSEs and the higher levels. So they're looking for tutors, support to help them get through their exams. So that's the bigger picture. Is there a growing demand for tutors? Yes, there definitely is. However, looking at the smaller picture, there's also peaks and troughs throughout the year. About now, June time, things will start to go quiet because most of the exams come to an end within the next week or two. And most of the parents who just want their children to survive the end of the school year, most aren't looking now for taking on extra work in the final half term of the year. However, you will get some parents getting in touch because if you're in an area where you've got school entrance exams, kind of the 11 plus or something, they will suddenly kind of like think, okay, the exams are happening in the beginning of the next school year. We're going to have support now to get us through the summer holidays, ready for the exams in September. And also, as school reports start to go out around now, parents' evenings, etc., some families which thought their children were doing well will suddenly realize that actually their child is struggling, and they'll kind of like think, okay, if we can support you through the summer holidays, then we don't need to carry on come September, and we'll just have that block of support so that give you that boost before we start. Others will kind of like contemplate getting in touch now, and then the summer will arrive and they'll be off on holiday and it'll forget. And so this, generally speaking, there is a lull in June, July, August, and then suddenly September schools go back and whoop, parents who've been intending to get in touch previously now actually kind of think, I need to get in touch. And then throughout the year again, it peaks and troughs. The school reports come out, parents' evenings occur, you get the peak, and then things will go quiet again. You get the occasional student within the mid time. But having said that, if you are thinking of starting a tutoring business, this is actually a really good time to do it because what it gives you time to start to build up. It gives you time to start to prepare, gives you time to I won't go into this in detail now, but apparently it takes an average person 7 sites of something to actually acknowledge it. So if you start doing your marketing in September and it's fresh, you're kind of like competing with all the other tutors, but also you are now an unknown entity. Whereas if you've started to just drip it in slowly from kind of like now through, the parents are just slowly starting to get aware of you in their subconscious. So when it is time for them to start looking for a tutor in September, they're already vaguely aware that you exist. But I'll leave it like that for now, but it is something to bear in mind. Okay. Okay, so there are multiple different types of tutoring. So you can either have one-to-one tutoring at your home, you could have group tutoring in a centre or in your home or online. You can have online tutoring or you can have in-person tutoring at their home. And we'll go through each of these and I'll try and be objective. I do have my opinions on things, but I will try for now to keep it as objective as I can. The most common form of tutoring is one-to-one tutoring in the tutor's home. For the tutor, this means that you're saving yourself the time and the financial expense which comes with traveling. You've got all your resources at hand, and so is the most convenient method for you. And because of that, you may decide that you can keep your prices that bit lower, because the inconvenience has been passed to the parents. And so you're potentially offering, um, however, you may find a way that you can still offer these one-to-one lessons, the inconvenience to the parents, but you may still be able to find that you can charge a premium because of maybe your experience or your background or something like that. But generally speaking, because the inconvenience is with the parents, the price is pushed down. And the other thing that you may find is because what will often happen is the parents will drop the child off, the child come into your home, you do the lesson, the child goes back out to the parents. And so you don't actually see an awful lot of them. And so because of this, it's much harder to build up the rapport. And the child comes home or the child finishes the lesson, goes out to the parents, and the parents say, oh, what did you do today? Not a lot. A bit like they get when child comes out of school. And so because you don't have the same contact with them, it's much harder to build up that rapport, that relationship, and ensure that the parents can see what it is they're paying for. Um, sorry. sorry, brain blank here. So therefore, if you're basically having to rely on an uplift in the child's grades or confidence in order to justify the lessons. Group tutoring is another common option. It can take place either in the children's home, it can take place in the central tutoring location, it may even take place online. Um, Shopping centres are becoming increasingly common for group tutoring centres. The parents can drop their child, go do their shopping, come back and collect their child at the end of the lesson, or they can go for a coffee or something, and again they can come back at the end of the lesson rather than just hanging around, especially if there's younger siblings. So this is becoming increasingly popular. Again, group lessons are generally cheaper because you can earn more by splitting a higher cost between multiple people. And so, however, if you're having to hire a venue for the lessons, it may impact your profits, and you're going to have to look into things like insurances and things like that that you're also going to have in place. So, on one hand, yes, you can earn more money by splitting the costs, but it may also be that you've got higher costs. So that's something that you're going to need to bear in mind. Um, the other thing is your attention is also being split, so it's harder to have that big impact on one child because you're again having to work with the majority rather than with just the individual. And it may also be that if the child's struggling to keep up in a classroom setting, they find that they're also struggling to keep up in a group setting, and that may be detrimental to their confidence. So, what some parents I've also heard moan about is the fact that they're sending their child to a setting to be tutored by an adult, but it's actually more peer-to-peer support, and that wasn't what they anticipated they were paying for. So it's all things to kind of like bear in mind, but it does mean that you can work with more children. It does mean that you can earn more money accordingly. And if you perhaps do it from your own home or something, if you've got the space, that could be the perfect kind of like um venue for doing it and keeping your costs down. Like tutoring in your home, though, the parents also have the inconvenience of them having to travel to you. And if you're doing the group setting, the group lessons in a general setting, you also need to be organized in advance to have the resources with you. So it's kind of like an inconvenience for the parents, but it's also an inconvenience for you. So most kids are, so went off on a tangent there. So something else to consider with group lessons. Online is becoming increasingly popular again, especially since COVID, when everything that was the only option basically available to people. And most kids are technically savvy enough that they don't need their parents there to help, especially by the time they reach secondary school. It's convenient for the parents because they're not having to drive their child anywhere. It's convenient for you because you're not having to travel. You've also got all your resources on the computer. And it's a case of if I've prepared something and the child suddenly goes, oh, actually, can we do this instead? You can go, yep, that's fine. And you can probably just open a different tab. So life is much easier when you can do it online. However, it can be hard to capture a child's attention, especially if it's something they're struggling with. And you will find that some children don't turn their camera on. And so you don't know whether you're talking to them or whether you're talking to yourself, especially if they're quite quiet. You kind of sat there, you ask them, does that make sense? And they go, uh-huh. And you go, I don't really know whether that uh-huh is a yes or uh-huh, I'm not really listening. I'm on my phone to my friends, because you can't see the body language. You can't really see what they're doing. However, it can keep the cost down again for the parents, and it is also far more convenient. But once again, it's putting that wedge between you and the parents. So what you probably want to do is email the parents at the end of the lesson or something, message them and just kind of say hi, or if they're around, ask them to join the Zoom call for the last couple of minutes and just say, hey, this is what we've been doing today. Your child did brilliantly. Or they seem to struggle with this, and so we're going to do more next time, or whatever it is, the feedback. But just do some things that you've got a couple of minutes interaction with the parents so that they know what it is that they are paying for, justify the expense. Online lessons also seem to have a higher cancellation rate with people just not turning up. So you will need a strong cancellation policy in place to ensure that you still get paid for the time that you've allocated to that lesson and the time that you've spent preparing for that lesson. So even if you don't charge for the full hour, you probably want something in place so that you're not just suddenly completely out of pocket. Finally, the biggest effort for you as a tutor, but the easiest option for the parent, is for you to travel to their home. As with the others, there's pros and cons to this, and they're probably the most extreme of all the pros and cons. You can charge a lot more because the parent has very little inconvenience. The inconvenience is all on your shoulder. You've got to travel, you've got to print things out, you've got to be there for a set time, regardless of kind of like traffic and roadworks and things. But it will reduce the number of families that you can work with on a specific day, which again justifies you traveling, charging more, because if you've got to prepare, travel to lesson A, do the lesson, travel to lesson B, do the lesson, travel between each lesson, you've now got that travel. And the odds are the family's going to be around, so that at the end of the lesson, it's actually going to be travel to the lesson, do the lesson, talk to the parents, travel to the lesson, do the lesson, talk to the parents. And so your day has just gone from 3 hour lesson, 3 hours of lessons to probably 5 hours. And so it is something that you need to bear in mind. You also need to have all the resources available for a full hour, possibly plus a bit, in case you get things through things quicker than what you anticipated. So you can't, because you're in their home, you don't have the same facility to be able to just kind of grab something and improvise, unless, like I do, you have kind of like a bag of additional generic resources with you that you can just kind of like pull out and go, okay, we've got 5 minutes left. How about doing this? Or do you fancy, we've worked hard, do you fancy doing that sort of thing? I would always double check with the families the day before that they're still expecting you, so that you don't just turn up and they're out because they've forgotten, especially when you first start working with them. And also ask if there's anything specific that they would like you to focus on, because some will let you know, some will kind of like say, we'll let you know, but basically don't hold your breath because they're not going to. Some will actually let you know. I often think of it being, you've got to prepare a meal for your other half's boss, and you ask your other half what you should prepare, and they go, anything. Yeah, okay. So you cook a Sunday roast with all the trimmings, blah blah blah. Amazing. They turn up on the day. You've cooked a beef with, I don't know, all the other bits. They turn up on the day and they're vegan. Yeah. Oh, I don't know what to do then, because I haven't got anything else prepared. I've got this prepared. And kind of like tutoring in another child's house can be a bit like that if they don't let you know what it is that they actually want you to cover, because you've kind of like prepared this, you've put all your effort into preparing this, and then suddenly they go, well, that isn't what we want to do. We want to do something else instead. Oh, okay. Right, okay, well, we can do that. Just bear with me a moment. So yeah, it has a lot of advantages. You can build up a rapport with the child, you can build up a rapport with the family, because it's the parents who pay you. So you need that rapport with them as well, ideally, as well as just the child. I mean, they're also paying for kind of like the child's confidence and the child's knowledge and everything else. However, if you can build that rapport with the parents, it does make a huge, huge difference, especially initially when you're first growing your business. And it also puts a child more at ease, because they're now in a location where they feel, or an environment where they feel confident. They've got their parents around them, they've got everything familiar around them. You haven't taken them to a strange place with a strange person to do some strange person, a stranger, to do something that they're not familiar with, something that or something that they're not confident with, sorry, something that makes them nervous. And you've just made this kind of like whole nervous situation a whole lot worse, because they're now with this complete stranger in a completely alien environment, and it's just got whereas in their own home you've eliminated some of the stress and the anxiety. So again, pros and cons. So something to consider. I'm going to read this bit a lot more because we're moving on to the legal bit now, and the legal bit was something I considered 12 years ago when I first set up the business, but in the 12 years since, I haven't actually looked at it that closely. So you basically have a sole trader, a partnership, or a limited company. They're your three options. And I'm going to skim through like I say, this area of expertise because it's not something I am strong on, and it is something that you will want to fully research before you start up your own business. So, the definition of a sole trader is a business which is owned and run by one person. There is no distinction between the business and the owner. Okay. The key points here are that it is quick and easy to set up with HMRC. The owner has full control and gets to make all the decisions. However, the owner is also personally responsible for all of the business debts and profits personally responsible for all of the business debts, and the profits are taxed as a personal income. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what the sole trader is. In comparison, the definition of a partnership is a business owned by two or more people who share the responsibilities and the profits. Okay. Here, both owners take shared responsibility. All the decisions and responsibilities are divided among both the partners, or multiple partnerships as appropriate. As with the sole trader, there is an unlimited liability. So this again means that the partners are personally responsible for any business debts. And once again, the profits are shared and taxed as personal income of each partner. Okay. It's advisable to have a legal agreement outlining the terms of the partnership. This is called a deed of partnership. Okay. So that's partnership. Very, very similar, except it's set up as two or more people. Okay. A limited company is slightly different, and that's the form we took for Clara James Tutoring. And the reason I chose to do that was because it was easier to get DBS checks done when I started taking on additional tutors. That was my logic at the time. It went no deeper than that. But the definition of a limited company is that it's a legal entity separate from its owners, okay? And it's got its own rights and obligations. This time, the owners or shareholders are not personally responsible for the company's debts beyond their investment in the shares, okay? It's a lot more complicated setup with HMRC and Companies House, and there are certain regulations that you need to oblige by. And this time, the company profits are subject to corporation tax. So the shareholders may also pay a personal tax on any dividends that they take out of the business. The business is now run by the directors rather than the owner, the person who actually set it up. And so the directors may not be the same people as the shareholders. I mean, the odds are at this stage it will be, but just something to bear in mind. That sounds intimidating, but basically for us, my board of directors is the owner, which is me. Okay, so to be honest, in that respect, it makes very, very little difference. It's just when I do the company accounts, I have to sign off as the secretary and the account and the board of directors. Different structures offer different levels of control, responsibility, and complexity. So it's important to choose the one that best fits your business needs and goals. And although there's no legal body covering tutoring at the moment, if you are carrying out the lessons from your home, it may be an idea to check with the local council to see if there's anything that you need to declare that might have an effect on your local council tax, on your house insurance, or again, if you're setting up a tutoring centre in a public place, you're going to need to comply with health and safety measures and things like that. You will also need to get liability insurance. I guess why is the question, and it's because you'll basically need it to protect yourself from any financial loss, or if something goes wrong while you're working. Accidents do happen, so although it's unlikely that a child is going to get hurt in the middle of a maths lesson, they may fall off a chair or something, and having liability insurance is just going to ensure that you're covered for any medical expenses or legal costs if the parents decide to sue you or something. Again, mistakes occur. I know of this was a school environment, but they accidentally taught the kids in the music department the wrong syllabus. All the kids failed. And if something goes wrong and the child does perform badly, again, if the parents decide to sue you, the liability insurance can help you with your legal fees. Okay. So again, it's hopefully it never happens, but it's just reassurance to know that it is there if needed. And the other thing is, if you're, say, tutoring in the child's home and you walk in, you go to take your shoes off, and the parents will go, no, don't worry, leave your shoes on. You go walking through and you accidentally leave a muddy footprint on their brand new cream carpet. Uh-oh. Again, having liability insurance just kind of like covers for damage or property or something like that. I must admit, I always take my shoes off, leave them at the door with my car keys and phone. That way, I don't have that fear hanging over me that I do accidentally leave a muddy footprint on someone's floor. But above all, it gives you peace of mind just knowing that you are protected, and it allows you to focus on your teaching without worrying about potential lawsuits or financial problems. So basically, in short, liability insurance is a safety net. It protects you from any unexpected costs and legal troubles. Okay, so that's kind of like the legal bit and the types of tutoring. The next part is the more interesting part, and that is the actual initial steps of setting up your tutoring business. It's the exciting part. The first thing you're going to need to think about is who do you want to tutor and what do you want to tutor? And this will probably take more imagination or more consideration than you would initially imagine. So you kind of think, well, I'm going to tutor maths. Okay, fair enough. But the curriculum that they learn at 5 years old is completely different to what they learn at 15 years old. There is a huge difference. And also, how you're going to support a 5-year-old is hugely different to how you're probably going to support a 15-year-old with their learning. And again, if you're kind of like tutoring or supporting degree students, how you'd support them is going to be even different still. And again, if you're supporting English, a 5-year-old may be looking at things like spelling and punctuation and basic reading. You're teaching, or if you're supporting GCSE students or A-level students, you may find that you're actually doing things like analysing Macbeth or socialism in an Inspector Calls. And the other thing is, if you're doing English literature, the children at one school may be doing Romeo and Juliet and Inspector Calls, Jekyll and Hyde, and Power and Conflict. A child at another school, kind of like 2 or 3 miles down the road in the other direction, or even two schools vaguely close to each other, may be doing Animal Farm, A Sign of Four, Macbeth, and relationships. You've now got an awful lot of reading and analysis to learn. So, if you are doing a specific subject like English or something, have a think about the syllabus that you may want to prioritize specializing in, because the more you can niche down, the better your reputation will be for that area. It's a bit, an analogy I heard was, is a bit like needing brain surgery. You'd probably go to the specialist brain surgeon rather than the GP, because the brain surgeon has the precise knowledge, the GP has the generalized knowledge. And when we first started with Clara James Tutoring, my goal was to support primary school children and those low level or lower ability children who perhaps had some form of neurodiversity. And then over the 12 years, we've kind of expanded from going from that to supporting every child, or being able to support children from reception through to the end of GCSE in both maths and English. But it's taken years to kind of like grow to that. And our next step will probably be to take on science, but that again will come with time. I never took out funding when I started the business. It was never meant to be anything big. It was literally, like I say, just to pay for school holiday or some holidays for the kids and I. So I never created an official business plan. I just worked out who I wanted to tutor, how I wanted to tutor them, where I wanted to tutor them, when and why. I can like have my 5 Ws. My financial plan was completely flawed. I had been working temporarily in an optician's and was earning something £7 or £8 an hour. So I charged £10 an hour, thinking this was an awful lot of money for people to have to pay up. However, within a couple of months, the friend that got me into tutoring suggested I put it up. So I doubled it. And it has continued to rise over the years. But as soon as I doubled it, I found it easier to get students, because people will perceive that what you charge is equivalent to your abilities and your abilities, your reputation, your your capabilities. So what I suggest you do is we won't go into the cost of tutoring now because that's something which is kind of like much more in depth. There's probably more than you would think of, but what I do want you to do is just hypothetically think of any costs that you think you might occur through tutoring and think about how many hours you want to work. Okay. Next step is how much do you need to earn? Okay. Add your expenses to what you need to earn, your kind of like tutoring expenses, add it to what you already need to earn. So perhaps they cover your personal rental mortgage, your gas bill, your electric bill, your TV license, whatever it is. So work out what it is that you need to earn and then divide that by the number of hours that you actually want to work. And does that give you a sensible answer? Does that give you a sensible hourly wage? There are things you can do to justify a higher wage, but again, we won't go down that rabbit hole now because it would take us off on a whole new tangent. But it is something for you to think about. So basically, if you are going to go down the official route and create a business plan, the key components that you're going to need to think about are an executive summary. Okay, so this includes a brief overview of your tutoring business. Again, I've got my notes here, so apologize if it looks like I'm reading. Your company's mission statement. So what are your business's purpose and core values? Ours at Clara James Tutoring are to create knowledge and confidence through fun, okay, and through varied resources. What are your business's goals, both short-term and his long-term objectives? And then you'll need to write a section about your background and your qualifications as the owner. Okay, so moving into the next section, the business description, you're going to need to think about your business name. Are you going to give your business a name or are you literally just going to be Dawn Strachan Tutoring? Originally, we were Star Tutoring because Star was my maiden name and I'd always been really, really proud of being Dawn Star. But in 2019, I tried to trademark it so that we could do the initial steps of getting the business ready to franchise. And I met a lot of opposition from another company whose name was Star. It was spelt differently and it wasn't a tutoring business, but the company name was Star. And so I chose Clara James after my oldest two children. Clara is my oldest daughter, Jamie is my son. James was also my dad's middle name. And now my grandson, who wasn't actually born at that time, his middle name is also James. And then I also chose the logo as an angel because that's the name of my youngest daughter. But my thoughts were if I gave the business a personal name, it would hopefully reflect the personal service that we offered, rather than providing a generic name, which may infer a generic one-star suits all service. So that was my logic behind Clara James. Location, where are you going to carry out your lessons? Will they be in a physical location online or both? Again, consider how you've come to this conclusion because the clearer you are about this, when parents get in touch, the easier it is to talk about it and in effect justify it. It's a bit like when I speak to parents, I'll kind of say, look, we provide parents in your lessons in your home because I feel that this and this. However, we also offer online tutoring, which is cheaper, but blah, 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 blah. And the other thing that you're going to need to offer is a detailed description of your tutoring service. So the subject you're going to provide, the grade level, whether it's one-to-one or group lessons, your tutoring style and the resources that you're going to need, etc. Okay. And the resources that you're going to use, that sounds quite straightforward, but actually when you come to think of it, you don't want to just replicate what everyone else is doing. So are you going to be creating your own? Are you just going to rely on worksheets or are you going to use a combination of different things? Are you just going to use this or this? There's more, again, it needs some careful consideration. Okay, the next thing is, like we talked about initially, getting a market analysis. So getting an overview of the tutoring industry will offer you the reassurance that actually there is a need for your business, that it is justifiable. But you're also going to need to consider an analysis of the tutoring industry's trends. Is there a growing demand over a longer period? The seasonal peaks and troughs, like again we spoke about earlier on. You're also going to need to consider whether there is a natural potential for your business to grow, or is the demand starting to ease off or fade off, or is there actually a demand for the subject that you want to support? Because it could be that you have um, a passion for I don't know, Greek mythology, and there might be one or two people that want to be tutored in Greek mythology, but is there enough to actually build up a business based upon that? So have a think about your business, how it is you're going to be presenting it, who you're going to be presenting it to. Is there a target market for those that you want to tutor? And that's paramount because you need to know that there are people available to want tutoring. Another example could be if you live in a small village and your goal is to support potential Oxbridge candidates get into either Oxford or Cambridge. That is very niche, especially if you're working kind of like face to face in your home or their home. You may struggle unless it's an incredibly high achieving village to find enough people to keep it floated. However, what you may do is move that business online, or you may live in a city or something where there is a lot of demand and it is going to be viable. But gaining that detailed information initially will help you justify to yourself and anyone else that yes, there is a demand for this business and I am doing the right thing. Something else to consider is who is your competition going to be? Get to know your competitors, their strengths, their weaknesses, how you're going to differentiate your services from them, and that's vital. For us, the two key things that we differentiate ourselves is A, our willingness to travel to the child's home rather than always expecting them to come to us. But the other thing we differentiate ourselves on, and this is the key thing, is our knowledge of working with children who have different learning styles, such as ADHD or dyslexia or ASD, etc. And that really is what is key to making us stand out in the market. Having a marketing plan will save you a lot of money. It will also save you from being caught out by so many scammers which are out there. Knowing your numbers is paramount. If you have calculated that, this is just an example to make it easier to explain, but you're going to charge £50 an hour per student. You work out that you're going to work 10 hours a week, which is going to give you £500 per week before expenses. Out of that, you need to pay yourself £300. And then after all the other expenses, you've got £75 to spend on marketing. You know you can spend that on marketing and come up with a plan on how you will actually spend it rather than just spending it on anything that comes up. And you may also want to consider how you're going to promote your business online, kind of like using social media marketing or marketing in the local community. You may want to create partnerships with local schools or something like that. 10 or 11 years ago now, as I started the business, a company phoned me, and I must admit, I wasn't really paying full attention to what the chap was saying. I was doing my ironing at the time. And we chatted. He kind of like asked me about the business, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh, what you're doing is brilliant. We need more people kind of like to support the type of children that you are." He asked me all these questions, and he seemed genuinely interested. And he kind of said, right, I tell you what, we can offer you first page positioning on Google. And because of what you do, I'd like to ask my manager to see if we can get it for you for a better discount. So he wandered off for a minute and then he came back. And so I've spoken to my manager and we can offer you, it was something like £400 for 6 months marketing on the first page of Google. Would I be interested? And being as naive as I was kind of like all those years ago, I kind of like jumped at the opportunity. 6 months being first page on Google, and this bloke's telling me my business is amazing. Yeah, please, fantastic. Then 6 months later, because I hadn't opted out of this contract, I got a phone call saying, basically, because you haven't opted out, you now owe us, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was thousands of pounds, and it's due today. And I didn't have that money. I was just coming through a divorce. I was kind of like, I was in the early stages of building up this business and it was just wasn't the finances I had to hand. So he said, well, you need to pay today because otherwise we're going to have to send the bailiffs around and I can't. So in the end, I said to him, look, if I give you £50 a day on my credit card and then pay you the rest back in installments if I'm obliged to pay it, And he said, yep, that's fine. If I could take the card, if he could take the card details, he'd go and speak to his manager about it, make sure it was okay to get it set up. He would phone me back in a few minutes. Okay, thank you. He hung up. Barclaycard phoned and said, had I authorised this payment? So I said, yes, I've authorised one payment, £50 to this company. Okay, so you've authorised this payment. Yeah, I've authorised one payment. So anyway, Barclaycard hung up and the first chap phoned back again. Okay, I've spoken to my manager and under the circumstances, he is willing to do that, but we're still going to be sending the bailiffs around today to collect. And he was kind of like laying it on really heavy. And what I hadn't realised they were doing was while he was on the phone to me, he someone else was in the background basically taking multiple payments off my credit card of £50, £50, £50. Because I'd authorised the first one, it gave them free rein to just keep going. And they took, my credit card was empty at the time, and they took over £13,000 off my card. When I got the letter from the Barclaycard a couple of days later saying, look, you've gone over your spending limits, you are going to be incurring fees. I could phone them up and said, but I only authorised one payment. They said, basically, because you authorised that £50 payment, they could keep going, just taking more. So I went to Citizens Advice to see what they could do. And in the phone call, the chap had said that they would create me a new website. And although I'd said I don't need a new website, because they had said that that was part of the contract, they never actually created it. And so because of that one fact, Citizens Advice were able to take it to the more claims court for me. They sent the bailiffs around, the bailiffs went around, and this company had now changed its name and was trading under a different company, but it meant they couldn't give me the money back. So I was able to go back to Barclaycard and say, look, there was a breach of contract. They said that they would give me a new website, and it never happened. It took about 18 months, but I did finally get the money back and the fees and everything, which I'd also incurred over that time. And I was just completely oblivious to the fact that people were out there doing things like that. So please, if you take nothing else away from this webinar, please do bear in mind that there are scammers out there, and they will take you for every penny that they have if they can. So basically, the reason I told you that, going back to the initial point, is make sure that any marketing you do relates back to your original marketing plan. If you've budgeted this for this, use it for that. Don't be tempted by other shiny objects to do something completely different, something that you hadn't planned on doing. If you're planning on basically, if someone phones you up, then say no, because it probably wasn't something that you'd planned on doing anyway. If you want to ask them to email you the information, you can always read it through and get back to them, but don't just say yes to some random person that phones you up. So we touched on earlier the organisation and management of the business structure, whether you're a sole trader, partnership, or limited company. In the early days of your business, you're probably not going to have a team, but as you spend more time, I want you to spend time, considering what, if you did, who it would consist of, what their role would be, what your role would be, how it would evolve with time. Think about yourself and the other team members and who you would need to take on as the business grows. And then when the time comes and you are ready to take them on, you know exactly who you need and what you need them to do. Okay. And again, the more time and effort you put into this now, the more prepared you'll be when the time actually arrives. So in your plan, you're also going to need to go over your day-to-day operations, how your business is going to operate on a daily basis, the length of time that you can allocate to various different aspects of the business, the marketing, the preparation for lessons, speaking to potential families, the list of things that you'll actually find yourself doing, especially in the early days when you're trying to create your policies and everything else, is endless. And so you need to be able to organize yourself so to fit everything in. When I first started this, I was working a full-time job, and I used to answer reply to people's phone calls and emails during my lunch break. And then when I got home, I would do all my preparation, my lessons and everything else on an evening. And sometimes I'd have to work into the early hours, but it was the most logistical way of fitting everything in. Um, and again, we've looked at where you're actually going to carry out your tutoring sessions. If you're going to hire an external venue, research the costs and things like that, what the availability of the venue is, etc. You're also going to need to create a list of any materials or equipment or anything like that that you're going to need to run your tutoring business. This is going to adapt over time or evolve over time. But when you first start out, this is probably going to be hypothetical rather than natural facts. But give it some thoughts about what you think it is you're going to need. It may just be a laptop and internet access. If you're actually going to people's houses or having people come to you, you may need to have physical equipment. So you probably need to be able to have a printer to print things out, etc. Okay, there's just two more sections to go on the business plan. And the first one of those is your financial plan. So this includes any startup costs. You're going to need to have a detailed list of your initial costs, like say, such as printer, equipment, marketing, your insurance, etc., etc. Your revenue projections, which are what you expect to earn as a tutoring service over the coming years, and your expense projections, which is basically what you anticipate your costs are going to be. And then from there, you can also think about your profit and loss forecast, which is basically an estimation of your business's profitability. Okay, the final section of the business plan is an appendix where you're going to put any supporting documents, such as any certificates of your insurance, any legal documents, your qualifications, your DBS checks, your detailed market research, everything like that. All the detail goes in appendix. Okay, so that's your business plan. And the final thing we're going to look at is the company branding. And this is the creative part, but don't get too hung up on it. Don't use it as an excuse to procrastinate and not get started. Like I say, when I started, it was Clara James no, it wasn't. It was Star Tutoring. And my son made me an image of a star and it said Star Tutoring over the top on a Word document. And I was really proud of that because partly because my lad had made it for me, but it was also a sign of my business. And then over the years, I got it done professionally because someone told me it looked like a child had made it. Well, yeah, they did, and that's partly why I was proud of it. But I did I did eventually kind of like relent and get it done professionally. And then in 2012, no, sorry, 2019, 2012 was when we started. 2019, we had to change our name, change our logo and everything. And I thought it was going to be kind of like hugely detrimental to the business, the fact that we'd gone from Star Tutoring to Clara James Tutoring. Who was ever going to know who we were? But actually, it probably means more to you than it does the outside world, especially if you're not using your name. Because I find that people get in touch and either go, "Hi, Clara," or "Hi, Dawn." It's been Dawn. It's the name, it's the person that they're getting in touch with rather than the business. So your name won't change. So I honestly don't think anyone is going to worry too much about your name. So just get started is what I'm trying to say. Don't worry too much about it. But do think about what you want your name and your logo and your brand identity to reflect. Again, this is something we could go into in loads and loads of detail. And I think I've already kept you longer than I said I was going to. So think about what sort of tutoring company you are. Are you kind of like professional and formal, or are you much more embracing of fun and creativity? Do you imagine that your company is your new best friend, and what sort of a vibe are they going to give off? Take it from there, basically. So I hope that has proven helpful. If you want to learn more about us, you can visit our website, which is clarajamestutoring.co.uk. There's a link on there as well for the franchise. If you, rather than starting your own tutoring business, you'd rather do it with the support of another company, then please do have a look. But I hope that's proven helpful. Thank you for watching, and thank you for watching to the end. And take care and good luck with your tutoring business.